Hey gang, and welcome back. These videos are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your unused collection fast and easily. 401 Games, Canada's top shop for all your hobby and TCG needs. Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest decks. Moxfield, the easiest way to store and share your deck lists. And Foil Armor, flatten your foils fast. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and play a tapped Rockfall Veil. Max has a tapped Restless Vinestock and ships it to Matt. Match's turn has him playing a Rejuvenating Springs, and he passes to Arja. Arja continues the trend of tapped lands with a Seaside Citadel, and we go to my second turn. I've got a Reflecting Pool, and cast the newly drawn Nature's Lore, announcing I'll go find a Ketria Triome. Max's turn 2 has a Forest, and he pays 2 for a Silver Mirror. Metche plays a Forest, and also pays 2, but this time for Into the North, going to find a tapped Snowland. Arja's turn has a Brushland coming in, and he pays 2 as well for a spell with an Explorer. This has him drawing, and then playing a tapped Temple of Plenty, which is his extra land for turn. He scries 1 as it enters, and passes after that. Turn 3 for me has a Forest coming in, and I ramp more with Kadama's Reach. Max's turn has a Karn's Bastion coming in, and he's then able to tap enough for Vannifar, evolved Enigma. Once she's out, he moves to combat, and he picks the mode to cloak a card from hand, and passes to Mathieu. Mathieu's turn just has him playing another tapped Snow Dual land, and then paying 2 for a Felwar Stone. Arja's got a Forest, and then taps out for Miss Bumbleflower. My turn, I play a Cavern of Souls, and name Dragon as it comes in. I then can safely resolve my uncounterable commander, and pass after it resolves. Max's turn has him casting a Soul Ring in his main phase, and then an animation module. He pays 2 for a Farseek, going to find a Breeding Pool, but doesn't shuffle, and shortcuts to combat, saying he'll shuffle at the end of turn. He has the Vannifar trigger put a +1/+1 counter onto all of his colorless creatures, which in turn triggers the module. Max pays the 1 twice, making 2 servo tokens from it, and then passes, shuffling from searching for his land. Match's got a Plains for turn, and pays 2 for a We Want a Shrubbery, going to find a land. It's a Forest, which comes in untapped, and this leaves him with enough mana to cast the Prismatic Bridge. He passes after the enchantment resolves. Arja's got an Island for turn, and then casts a Bloated Contaminator, which triggers Bumbleflower, and he has her giving herself a +1/+1 counter, and has me drawing a card. He then casts Thalia, and gives Bumbleflower again the counter, and me the draw, and since the second time this has happened, Arja gets to draw 2. Moving to combat, he hits Mathieu with Bumbleflower, which I unfortunately forget to mark until later on, and he passes after combat. I've got a mountain in my main phase, and pay 3 for an Obsidian Charma, thanks to the reduction from the 2 lands that tap for colorless on the board. Miirym makes a token copy as it comes in, and I have both dragons blow up one of Matt's snow lands. I then tap enough for Atsushi, getting a token copy as well. Going to combat, since I know how Matt's Esika deck can get out of hand quickly, I swing a Miirym at him for 6, and pass after she connects. Max draws, and casts a From Beyond in his main phase, and then goes to combat. He cloaks this thing as he puts a card from hand onto the field thanks to Vannifar, and then pokes Matt for 3 with his commander. Matt's upkeep has the bridge triggering, until he hits Mila, Crafty Companion. He then draws for turn, and plays a Reflecting Pool. He then casts Amaranth the Lustrous, and passes after his dragon resolves. Arja draws and asks what kind of blockers Max has. He then casts a Basking Broodscale, giving Max a card from Bumbleflower, and is contaminated the counter. With that ability on the stack, Max effectively morphs one of his cloak cards by paying its mana cost, and reveals a Dreamtide Whale face up. Arja then casts an Elvish Mystic, getting another Bumbleflower trigger. He has Max draw 1, Arja gets to draw 2, and he gives the Broodscale a counter, which makes Arja an Eldrazi spawn token, and since this is his second spell for turn, this triggers Max as well, and Max proliferates all of his +1/+1 counters on his creatures. The Contaminator then goes at Max for 5, which connects. This gives Max a poison counter, and Arja gets to proliferate, adding another poison counter, and adding another +1/+1 counter to all of his creatures that have one. This makes him another Eldrazi spawn from the Brood Scale, and he passes to me after that. I draw for turn and play a mountain. I then cast Sneak Attack, and activate it to put out a Balefire Dragon. With the dragon coming in, Miirym makes a token copy, and the original gains haste from Sneak Attack. I then announce I'll go to Punchies, and I swing the Balefire Dragon and both at Sushis at Arja. Before damage, Arja casts Rapid Hybridization to take out the Balefire Dragon. This triggers Bumbleflower, drawing Mathieu a card and giving Arja's Brood Scale another counter, which makes him another spawn. Arja then casts an Eldamri's Call, giving Mathieu another card, and giving Bumbleflower the counter, plus letting him draw 2. Max also gets to proliferate again thanks to his whale. Arja says he'll tutor for a card after, and he blocks the reel at Sushi with Bumbleflower. With the dragon getting taken out, I pick the mode to exile my top 2 cards. I hit a Nykthos and a Dragonborn Champion, and Arja then tutors in his library for a Spark Double and puts it to hand. With nothing else, I pass turn. Max gets to make an Eldrazi Scion in his upkeep, and has an island as he plays it for turn. And then cast the new card, March of the World Ooze. His creatures are now 6/6 oozes, but surprisingly they do not gain green, which is very relevant for Vannifar's triggers. He then goes to combat, triggering Vannifar, and picks the mode to put a counter onto all of his colorless creatures. He pays for one of the animation module triggers, making a 1/1 servo token. He then swings 2 of his older servo tokens at Arja, and Vannifar and the cloak card we don't know at me. Arja blocks both, while I stop the cloak 10/10 with a beast token, but take 6 from Vannifar. Mathieu's bridge triggers, revealing until he hits Sexy Sorin, Sorin the Mirthless. He then plays a Swamp, which triggers Amaranth, and he reveals a land off the top which goes to hand. Mathieu then upticks Sorin, revealing another land and putting it to hand and takes 0. He then plays a Carpet of Flowers, and announces he'll move through combat. In his second main phase, his carpet gives him 2 mana because of either Max or I having 2 islands, and he picks red. He uses all of this remaining mana to help cast Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh. This is his second spell this turn, so Max gets to proliferate on its creatures. Bolas then hits the board, and Max activates the Planeswalker, targeting me. I reveal until I hit Akin to Discovery, which Matt gets to steal and cast, and names Praetor as it comes in. Arja's turn has a Spark Double coming in right off the bat, and he has the Bumbleflower trigger giving the Contaminator a +1/+1 counter, and Max gets to draw a card. It then enters as a copy of Bumbleflower, and Arja then follows up by casting a Glistener Elf. This is the second real Bumbleflower trigger, and the first from the Spark Double, so Arja draws 2, and has Max and Mathieu draw 1, and gets to put a counter onto the Brood Scale and the Contaminator. This gives him another Eldrazi spawn, and Max gets to proliferate from his whale again. Arja then puts a Force into play, and casts a Boreal Druid. This is the second trigger from the copied Bumbleflower, and he gives Matt and Mathieu both another card draw, and the third from the real one, so he gives Mathieu and Max both another card draw, draws 2 cards, and pumps his creatures even further. Going to combat, Bumbleflower then goes at Nicol Bolas, while the Contaminator goes at Mathieu. This triggers Mila, giving Mathieu's Planeswalker a loyalty counter. Bolas and Mathieu then take the hit, but are still standing, with Matt also gaining a poison counter, which is then proliferated, as is Max's poison counter as well. Arja also proliferates all the counters on all the creatures, with the promise that Max swings out at me. Max agrees, and Arja then moves to his end step, discarding down to 7. My turn has me playing Nykthos as my land for turn from exile, and I then activate it to make 10 red mana. I use some of that to help cast a Dragonborn Champion, which as it comes in, gets a token copy from Miirym. I then use the rest of the remaining floating mana to help cast a Wrathful Red Dragon, which is my second spell, so Max proliferates his board, and I then make a copy as the Red Dragon comes in. Moving to combat, the Charmos go at Max, whilst the Balefire and Atsushi go at Arja. Before moving to blocks, Arja casts Royal Treatment, which gives Max a Beast token from his Ooze enchantment, and gives Bumbleflower the Aura. He also gives Max and Matt a draw from the Bumbleflower triggers, and he pumps the real Bumbleflower and the Brood Scale, which makes Arja an Eldrazi spawn token. Arja then blocks the Balefire with Bumbleflower, taking it out, but I get 2 Wrathful Red Dragon triggers and deal 12 twice to his face. Max also takes 8. I then get the Dragonborn Champion draw triggers, but only get to draw 2 twice, or simply put 4, because of the Wrathful Red Dragon's ability being the only damage that's been over 5. With nothing else, I then pass and discard down to hand size. Max has a forest return, and after some quick mental math, feels like we're at the point with the current board states where he needs to force me to block, or they're all going to be in the Dragon Danger Zone. He casts a Walking Ballista, and puts 0 into the X's, but it still comes in as a 6/6 because of the World of Ooze. He then casts a Snapping Voidcraw, and decides to proliferate basically everything he can. Going to combat, he pumps his colorless creatures with Vannifar's ability, and then swings out at me, confident he can force me to block and survive since Arja and Mathieu also have very threatening boards. Before going to blocks, I use Sneak Attack to put out Furcrag, making a token copy. And then Ganax. With Ganax coming in, I make a treasure token, and then 2 as the copy comes in since the real sees it as well. I then declare blocks, putting 6 of my dragons in front of 6 of Max's biggest creatures. With that declared, Max uses Beast Within and targets the real Wrathful Red Dragon. I respond to this with a Colony Ambush, and have my Atsushi copy fight the biggest colorless creature on Max's side. Atsushi is easily taken out, and as it hits the yard, I exile my top 2. I also get 2 Wrathful Red Dragon triggers for 16 each, and I do 1 to Arja and 1 to Mathieu. This is enough to take Arja out, and Mathieu drops to 4. The real Wrathful Dragon is taken out as well, and we then move to damage. There's still enough damage coming from just the copy of the Wrathful Red Dragon seeing the dragons that I have on the board taking damage to take out both Max and Matt, and oddly enough, I win the game in Max's combat step. Game review time. This was a quick one, but it was chocked full of interaction, which is a great game, and everyone got to cast their commander and do something cool, I felt like. Max's Vannifar deck flipping up a Dreamtide Whale so he didn't have vanishing counters was sweet. Arja having 2 missed Bumbleflowers was just a ridiculous amount of card draw, and Esika just does what Esika does, which is cheat out free spells. However, obviously I think the best card of the game comes from my deck, and that's Wrathful Red Dragon, which is basically a win condition in the deck as long as I have Blasphemous Act. It makes attacking and defending so much more threatening to my opponents, and it's just such an awesome card. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.